Well, there's not too much going on in the middle of the summer, but we came up with a fun idea today.
We'll see if it's fun.
We make our own fun here. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast with Reuben Frank. Dave Zangaro. Rube's already hit me with a negative outlook on this one. We're 30 seconds in.
Going in with an open mind. No, I think this will be fun.
I think it will be fun. It's a good activity for us. And I had fun putting together some of my answers. And the idea here is basically we're going to go through some of our most memorable games, moments, some of our favorite players, and different categories that we've kind of outlined. And I don't know what Rube's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. I'm guessing some of his answers are going to be from long before I covered the team.
Long before you were born.
Before I was born, possibly. But let's start. And I just have the list in front of me. We'll go through. And I think this will be a fun exercise. The first one is the most memorable game you've covered. And I made sure to say non-Super Bowl because, I mean, we could pretty much go down this list and just start talking about Minnesota. And we've already done that. So
several times.
Yeah. So the most memorable game for you, what is it?
For me, the most memorable game, and this is a tough one, but I'm going to go with that 2010 game against the Giants when, the great comeback. They were down 31-10 with 7.5 minutes left, and Mike Vick just went bananas. Obviously, it was a game Deshaun Jackson won it with that punt return. Who was the punter? Matt Dodge, was that his name?
Yeah.
Matt Dodge.
Got the heck out of Dodge after that.
He really did. I think that was it because that was just, I mean, they didn't just lose that game. They were getting blown out. I mean, they're down 21 points with halfway through the fourth quarter. And first, I think it was Selleck had a 65-yard touchdown, longest of his career. And then Macklin. I think Macklin had fumbled, or Macklin or Deshaun fumbled. And then the Giants scored to make it 31-10. I think Kevin Boss, was there a tight end named Kevin Boss? Mm-hmm. He scored. And it was just, there was no life. The Eagles had no life, and then they just went on a tear like nothing I've ever seen, and they won at 38-31.
You know what's funny? So that game, I wasn't covering the team yet. I don't think I'd covered anything NFL at that point yet in my career, but I was working here and I was running the website that day, and as we're watching it, we're coming up with headline ideas. And, you start off with, all right, they're going to lose this game. What's the headline? And then people forget how good Mike Vick was in that game because it got overshadowed by the punt return.
Yeah.
Mike Vick was incredible bringing them back in that game. We were going to go, if they won it and it didn't end on a play that was insane, we're going to go with Merry Vickmas because it was in December. It was around Christmas time. And he was unbelievable. And then, of course, it ended the way it ended, and it had to be another miracle. That was what we went with. But that's a real good one. I wish I could have covered that game. Although I'm sure it was not an easy game to cover from a pure workflow perspective.
I remember most is going into the visiting media room at the Giants stadium. I guess that was the new stadium by then. And Deshaun was still in his helmet and his gear. And he comes up to the podium, and we're all standing there, and he says, "Sorry, I'm not ready yet. I just need a moment." I just got to get my thoughts together. He was so overwhelmed he couldn't even speak yet.
Yeah.
And it was, and there was a point where you knew they were going to win. The Giants knew the Eagles were going to come back. It was just a matter of how it was something else.
Yeah.
That was I just started here because I started here in the fall of 2010. So,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a fun one. I didn't cheat, but I went as close as I could come to cheating because I didn't pick the Super Bowl. I picked the NFC Championship game.
Sure.
And it's not even necessarily the game itself because it wasn't a real close game. It was early, and then the Eagles blew them out of the water. It was just the feeling in that stadium. I don't think I've ever been in a more electric atmosphere than the NFC Championship game against the Vikings.
Yeah.
I even from the moment they were warming up, I mean, that place was just buzzing. And then the moment when Patrick Robinson had that pick six, I've never heard it louder. Just never heard it louder. And, the press box is inside. You wouldn't have known we were inside. It felt like we were in. I can't imagine how loud it was in the stands. That to me was the most fun. And then, you got to the cool thing about it that it wasn't a fun game was the second half became a party. And it's like the whole city feels like it's at the stadium celebrating and partying, knowing that they're going to the Super Bowl. And that kind of made it kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a wild day. And honestly, the 2004 NFC Championship game was the same, was similar.
Mm-hmm.
There was that similar buzz in the stadium. And, there was that inevitability. I mean, as the lead kept building, it's like the game didn't even matter. It was just like an hour and a half long celebration in the second half. That was the final 38-7. I mean, they dominated that game. They just teed off, and yeah, you really felt like this team is able to give the Patriots a fight. And
yeah, if there was any doubt, I mean that because the week before Atlanta, it was like a lot of things had to go their way. It comes down to the last play, and you go, man, they almost didn't win that game. And Foles played all right. He played better in the second half, but it wasn't like, I mean, the way he played in that NFC Championship game, you thought, all right, like this is going to happen. So that's why for me it was at the top there. All right, the most memorable play, again, non-Super Bowl, because you probably rattle off 5 from that game that you'd put right at the top of the list.
For me, it was Eric Allen's pick 6 off Boomer Esiason. The game Randall Cunningham got hurt in '93 up at the old Giant Stadium against the Jets. Randall suffered a season-ending broken leg, and he was watching the game from the tunnel. There was a tunnel like behind the middle of the end zone, and he was on crutches watching the game. And then Eric Allen picks off Boomer Esiason and runs. I think it was like 138 yards. Broke like 5 tackles. Did a couple spin moves. NFL Films called it the greatest interception return ever in the history of the game. And as Eric Allen got to the end zone, Randall's standing there on crutches, and EA handed Randall the football in what's really become an iconic moment in Eagles history. There was like 5 times during that return that you just thought like he was surrounded by 3 defenders, and there's like no way, and he would spin out of it or just run around it. And one of his, I believe, 9 pick 6s in his career.
It's unbelievable.
And it was, should be a Hall of Famer. There's no question in my mind. That was the greatest play I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's a good one. The play I picked isn't necessarily a great play, but it's a really memorable play. It's the double doink.
Okay.
Because I remember that happening and everyone just staring in disbelief, like, wait, what the heck just happened here? And then you watch, no one moved. Everyone just watched it, and the whole stadium was just silent. And then you watched it on replay, and you went, no way. And then the reason it's even more memorable is we went down to the locker room, and Jason Kelce had no idea that it was Cody Parkey who kicked the field goal. And then my favorite part of the whole thing was that Trayvon Hester got his fingertip on it, and none of us had known that until we went down to the locker room. And I remember Chris Long, like, seeking people out, telling them, no, Trayvon Hester got his fingertip on that ball. Like, you need to make sure that people know that. So I thought that was cool. Like, all of his teammates really wanted him to get the credit that he probably eventually he would have gotten it, but none of us knew. I mean, it happened, and you kind of have to run downstairs and talk to these guys. So that was cool for me to watch, was all these veteran players really pushing forward this young kid who was like a practice squad guy who made this big play.
Yeah. That's usually on a big field goal like that, I'll watch the kicker. That's how you know first whether it's good or not. Mm-hmm. I didn't know because I don't think he knew how to respond for a few seconds there. And I'm trying to write 10 observations if they won and 10 observations if they lost. It was a nightmare for me. The next thing you know, you're down in the locker room, and like all of a sudden now we have to, plan travel to New Orleans, and like it was just so much going on. It was surreal. And the fact that it was a former Eagle who was kicking, just added to the drama. It was that was wild. That's a good one. Yeah.
Next one, favorite interview moment. If you want me to go first on any of these, let me know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go with this one. This one's kind of a silly one. I could have gone serious here. But this happened early in my time covering the Eagles. I wasn't even like full time on the beat, but there was a little kerfuffle between a few media members on this day. You know what I'm talking about here, right?
There's been a few of those kerfuffles.
Okay, yeah, this one was, I guess it was like 2010, 2011, something like that. And we're in the locker room.
Oh, sure, yeah.
After all this happened, and a bunch of us are in the corner interviewing Mike Vick, and Asante Samuel comes in and he starts screaming for the two participants of this kerfuffle, trying to find them because it had gotten out there and the players were all getting a big kick out of it, much more than the two people involved. And my favorite part is that Mike Vick is really trying to keep it together. He's trying to answer these questions, and there's still video out there. I think it's on YouTube if you want to watch it, but he's trying to keep it together. But the more Asante's, Asante, he's not giving this up. So eventually Mike Vick just loses it and he starts like laughing and he loses his whole train of thought. And eventually he gets it back online, but it was a fun moment.
Yeah, and a week later we were in Seattle, and the two people involved in the altercation were drinking beers and showing each other family photos.
And to this day, they get along perfectly fine.
Yeah, they do. So that's a good one. My favorite interview moment's a little different than yours. It was the day after the Super Bowl. It was the morning after the Super Bowl, and we were at the Mall of America in one of those interview rooms. No, is that where we were? Yeah.
It was a little tiny room.
Yeah. And they did they handed off the keys to the Super Bowl.
I'm guessing that wasn't the moment you're talking about.
No, but it was the point being it was interminable before they finally got Nick Foles out there. And we were in the front row, I believe, you and me and a couple other Philly guys. And a lot of people had gone home. There wasn't a huge crowd there, but the MVP and the winning coach always talked the next morning. And I asked Nick about how he wants people to, what he wants people to take away from his journey, which, included, bouncing around for a few teams, getting benched, almost retiring, just all the, everybody knows what Nick went through. He had been with the Eagles and then the Chiefs and then the Rams. That was only it was only starting at that point, but his answer was so heartfelt and moving. And I'll be honest, I was having a hard time because he's like looking at me and he's like he's just talking about his journey and the emotion of it. He just won the Super Bowl. The guy was a backup quarterback a month earlier. So it was really emotional, and that was the moment. Just his answer, and I should have it in front of me. It's on YouTube, and it was really a very very moving soliloquy, I guess he had about persistence and determination and sticking with it when against all odds and never give up and gosh,
what stuck with me from that thing. Yeah. I still think about it quite a bit. He talked about how it's so common in modern life to post highlights, whether it's sports highlights or you go on people's Facebook page or Instagram, and it's all the good things end up there, and you don't see all the hard work or all the failures that led to that good thing. And that was his point. And it was, I still think about that today when I'm scrolling through Instagram and seeing all these great moments. You're like, well, yeah, that's only part of life. And you're right. It was, I remember you and I looked at each other after he went through that and went, ooh, that just happened. That was wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just, I try to take a lot of care with the questions I ask in a situation like that, because you're only going to get one question, and I want to ask something nobody else is going to ask. And I was just, I don't always ask the best questions. I was glad I asked him that, and that quote wouldn't have existed if I didn't ask him that question. And I was proud of that. Yeah. And, the next day they're talking about it on Good Morning America, and it's like there, I go by the TV and there's the quote up there. And so I just thought that was really cool. That meant a lot to me.
Yeah. I figured you were going to go with that one. That's a real good one.
Yeah.
Favorite player to interview? I'll let you go first.
Well, I make sure he's not in the room because I don't want his head to get real big. But Seth Joyner was when he played, and if you've only seen him on pregame, postgame, it's probably not surprising. He would say anything to anyone at any time, and he did not give a bleep about it. There were no filters. He would rip on the coach. He would rip on the quarterback, his teammates. If he felt it, he would say it. And you know, I mean, there was a parade back to his locker every day, you know, especially after they lost. And he spoke his mind. He hasn't stopped, but he was incredible to, you know, I mean, some of the quotes, I mean, like when he called Kotite a puppet of the owner, I mean, some of these things will live on forever. He was by far the most fun because there was always something. He would always just rip on somebody. And it was usually somebody in a position of authority. So, you know, it kind of really resonated with everybody. Like you know, Seth is not afraid to take on anyone, whether it's the owner.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah. So definitely Seth Joyner. Who do you got?
I'm going to go Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah.
And the thing with Malcolm that always impressed me so much is that he could talk about anything and he would have to. I mean, there'd be at any given moment, when you're talking to Malcolm, it would be like, you know, why were you guys in cover 2? What was your responsibility on that post route? Then the next question is, so what do you want to propose to lawmakers about? I mean, he would go back and forth from these like football topics to social justice issues to criminal reform, and he did it all with such ease and with such poise, and he always had really thoughtful answers. He was never someone to just start talking and then think about what he was going to say. There was thought behind everything he said. And he gave some really memorable lines too. The one that's kind of funny to me, I'll never forget the day Orlando Skandrick tried to extend his 15 minutes of fame, and he ripped on Malcolm, and Malcolm knew it was coming, and everyone's at his locker. And you remember what he said? I'll never forget what he said.
Yeah.
Can't have bleepity bleeps like that in the room. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I always appreciated it. And for all like the social justice issues, he recognized that he had a responsibility if he was going to put himself in that position, that he had to be available, and he would talk about any of those issues for as long as anyone would listen, or as long as anyone had questions. And it's a you know, he'd be out of practice and it would be hours later, and if people had questions about it, he would stand there and answer them. And I always appreciated that.
You know, the funny thing about that Orlando Skandrick thing is the Eagles social media did it because he was questioning Malcolm's leadership, and somehow they found a clip of him praising Malcolm's leadership in the middle of a game on the sideline. And he only played 2 games here, so it was one of those 2 games, and they tweeted that out. That was brilliant
with nothing, just
no explanation, just man, you are one natural leader. That was like,
and I remember we were also impressed by that, and we kind of inquired a little bit, like, how high did this decision have to go? And they were like, high,
right?
Yeah,
really.
They didn't do that. It wasn't some intern deciding to put that clip out.
Right. Whoever found that audio probably, get a promotion. But the other thing is Skandrick did that just to kind of boost his own career, where has that gone, by the way? Yeah. So that's always interesting.
Favorite player to cover? I'll go first here. Kelsey. It's Jason Kelsey, because not only is he an incredible player, but he's always fun to talk to, always super insightful. He's a great teammate. It's Kelsey for me. He's my favorite player to cover.
I had a category in between those two, but that doesn't matter. Favorite player to cover, I'm gonna say Randall, just because every day with Randall, like his personality was the same way as the way he played. Like, you never knew what was coming next. Mm-hmm. He was full of surprises. He was hilarious. He was so interested in the writers. We'd be at practice. I remember being at a practice right here at JFK. So we were probably right like 20 feet that way. And Randall you know, he wasn't. It was the second team was on the field, and Randall's like walking up and down, asking all the writers like how much we make. Rube, how much you make, man? He was asking all the guys like what they like. He was just, this is like during practice, like that kind of stuff wouldn't happen anymore. But and just, you know, as a player, so dynamic. He was doing things nobody had ever done before. He was, you know, I was just really lucky. Gosh, when I started this job to cover Reggie White and Randall Cunningham and Jerome and Clyde and Seth and Andre and Wes and I, you know, Buddy and Randall, there was just something about him. He's one of those larger than life guys, and never put it together until he got to Minnesota. But it was every day was a new adventure with Randall.
What was the category you had that you think
favorite Eagle to watch?
Oh, well, that was because we added that. Okay, I'll go with that.
Okay.
You want me to go first?
Sure, I don't care.
For me, it's Darren Sproles. Just dynamic. I mean, just absolutely dynamic. And to watch someone who's your height when you're a small guy like me do those things, it was pretty cool. And I think some people know this about me. My favorite play is a screen, because a screen is like the perfect team play offensively. Everything has to go right for that play to go off effectively. And there was no one better at that play than him if he got the ball in his hands with open field. So Sproles, yeah. I don't think I've ever enjoyed watching any Eagle more than him. I
would say Vic for me. Yeah. Really for the same reasons, just so dynamic, so explosive. You know, his reign as an elite quarterback with the Eagles was not very long, but it kind of ended when he got picked off by Tremont Williams in the end zone. But, you know, the first 2.5 months of that season, I've just never seen anything like it. I mean, it was like the Eagles were like a pinball game, and it was breathtaking just watching them play.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, I'll go back to my list here. Funniest player you ever covered?
Yeah, it comes down to two cornerbacks. I figure you're taking Slay, so I'm going to take Asante.
Yeah, either one of those would work.
He was. I mean, you would be crying at practice because he was so funny.
Damowich.
Yeah, I mean, he was just. Yeah.
One of my favorite stories. Well, after Slay left here and he went to Atlanta, Damo went down.
You mean Asante?
What did I say?
Slay.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Asante went down to Atlanta. Damo went down and did a story on him. And that was the lead of the story. Like, Damo's walking on the field, and he just hears from like 40 yards away, hey, Damowich. Because Slay, or God, Asante at some point had learned that Damo was the Hall of Fame voter in Philly. And all of a sudden, they had a great relationship.
That's right. Yeah, he was. But Asante's ability to, and I think it really, I mean, he kept the defense loose. He kept the whole team loose at practice. And, you know, I just think of those days at Lehigh where he would like scream at Marty, you know, like, you know, it was just, it was hilarious. It's hard to kind of, I can't even think of like one example, but.
I gave one earlier.
Yeah, you did. But he was whether it was in a locker room, you know, whether it was on the field, he was hysterical. He was just funny as hell.
Yeah, I have to go with Slay, and I know it's so recent, but gosh, that guy makes me laugh every time I'm around him, and it's like legitimate laughter. Some players will try to tell jokes, and you laugh because they're 6'3", 250, or you know, not Slay. He's just legitimately funny, and he cracks everyone up. I do have another guy I thought of, Evan Mathis.
Yeah,
was very funny, very smart.
Yeah,
very funny though.
Yeah, I remember once I was talking to Evan in his locker. I think I told you the story. I used to get like when back in the old days, they would bring the coordinators in the auditorium, and everybody would be in there for their innings. The locker room was actually open, and you could get players one-on-one in there until the whole crowd would come in at the same time after the press conferences were over. And I asked Evan if he had a minute, and he said, "Yeah, but as soon as the press conference ends and those guys come in, I'm going in the lounge." He's like, I don't want to do a big press conference, but I'll talk to you for a few minutes. And so we're talking, and he's giving me some really good stuff. And all of a sudden, the door opens at the other side of the locker room, and you see like 30 people come in with microphones and cameras and everything. And he goes, and one guy who was right in the front who sits near you is right in the front. And Evans looks over and he goes, okay, here come the weirdos. And he just disappears into the lounge.
I have a good Evan Mathis story. I do my stupid observation of the day for all practices that I cover.
Yeah.
And it was earlier on when I started doing this, probably like, 2011, 2012. It was OTAs. And I tweeted something out like, I got to find a good stupid observation of the day today. And Evan Mathis tweets me back and goes, I'll get one for you. So on the sideline at practice, and I hear, Dave, and it's Evan Mathis. He's on the field during individual drills. He's waving me over. I'm going, I can't go on the field, Evan. He's waved me over. He won't stop. So I'm like, all right. I run over, and I'm thinking, this is Andy Reid now. I mean, Andy's he sees me. He's tossed me out himself.
Yeah.
So I run over there, and it was I forget exactly what Evan told me. It was something like, this lineman's the only white lineman without tattoos or something. And I was like, did you just wave me over during practice to tell me this? He's like, yeah, it's a good one. I was like, I got to get back to the sideline, man. And I had like nightmares about that, because imagine Andy seeing that.
You know, I used to play Ruzzle with Evan Mathis. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a word game. So like
I miss Ruzzle. Yeah.
And he would beat me like every time. He was incredible at it. I started beating him, which he blamed on CTE, which isn't very funny, but started beating him regularly. But at the beginning, he would beat me. Like, he would kill me. Like, I didn't have any strategies yet. Mm-hmm. And one day we're all like waiting for the players to come off the field after practice. And, you know, there's like a gauntlet of media. There's like 100 media, cameras and microphones and people with notebooks. And the players go through, and you grab a player. And Evan Mathis comes running off the field, and in front of 100 media yells to me, hey, Rube, you suck at Ruzzle. Which at the time was true. I've gotten better.
All right. Best player you've ever covered, offense and defense. You want to go first?
Sure. I'm going Shady and Reggie.
Okay.
Reggie speaks for himself.
Yeah.
I think the greatest defensive end ever. And Shady, you know, as great as he was, I think kind of underrated. The only player in history catch 500 passes, rush for 11,000 yards, and have a 4.5 rushing average. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Just did it consistently, was durable, never had a bad year. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro. I mean, there's been some great offensive players here over the years, but when you look at longevity and just doing it year after year on a high level, you know, I could go. I mean, I saw Quick at the end of his career. You know, you go Westbrook, Donovan, but I'm going to go Shady.
Yeah, that's fair. So I had a tough time here because I covered some really great players for the couple years I was covering the Texans. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really want to include them, but I'll give you those first. I covered Andre Johnson and J.J. Watt. So,
pretty good right,
you know,
there.
I didn't want to just like exclude those, because those are two all-time great players. I was covering JJ during, you know, his prime, which was
Arcega-Whiteside.
Yeah, no, he didn't make this list. But I was covering Watt during his run there. That was like, he was Aaron Donald before Aaron Donald.
Yeah, he was.
So I didn't want to exclude them. So those were my Houston guys. As far as the Eagles go, I'll give you Jason Peters on offense. I don't know if there's ever been a better offensive tackle at his peak than Jason Peters. I mean, he was, talk about Shady. I mean, a lot of the times it was JP out there in front leading the way. And then defense, I'll give you Fletcher, who, it's funny, both of those players have kind of become victims of their own success because they've tailed off. You know, JP clearly tailed off at the end of his career here. Fletcher starting to tail off now at the end of his career here. And they get a lot of hate for it, but it's like they set the bar so high that, like, yeah, they're going to tail off because they were all-time great players at their peaks.
Right. Yeah. Two good ones.
Yeah. Favorite assistant coach? I'll go first on this one.
Sure.
Jeff Stoutland.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking to that guy so much, and he's a great coach. Like, he really is. And at least since I've covered the NFL, I've never seen players revere a coach as much as they do Jeff Stoutland.
It's true. Yeah. And his ability to turn good players later in their career into great players is unmatched.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey, Evan Mathis, Brandon Brooks never made a Pro Bowl in their careers before getting coached by Jeff Stoutland, and they had played for other coaches. We're like Lane Johnson has only ever played.
I like to include Lane just for the hell of it, but he didn't play for anyone else.
Yeah, but those other three did. I mean, those other three played for other coaches and never reached their peak until he was their coach.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm sure you can guess who I'm going with. It's Harbs. You know, Harbs and I had a lot in common, and we used to have long talks about, like, you know, I'd been at the Burlington County Times for like 20 plus years. He had been with the Eagles for like 14 years, and we both felt like, you know what, if this is all we ever do, you know, it's been a good career, but we really like bonded over the frustration of kind of being, you know, feeling like he could do more and go somewhere bigger and have a bigger role. And, you know, eventually we both did. I came here and he won a Super Bowl with the Ravens.
I give a nod to you on that one.
But yeah, we used to have, after practice, we used to stand out there on the practice field, and I remember him telling me, I don't know if I should even, I mean, he had applied, I won't say the school, he had applied for a big time college head coaching job, and he never even heard back from the school. So, you know, if you ever see Michigan run it up on a certain school, you know, you'll know why, because his brother's loyal to him. But he was just hoping to get a head coaching job in college, and he couldn't even get an interview. And Steve Bisciotti saw something in him, and you know, he's probably, well, I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's only won one Super Bowl, but hell of a record. They go to the playoffs every year. They win 10 games every year. He's had a great career, and just a super guy. You know, he would. Well, I don't want to get too deep into it, but he's my favorite assistant. And Jim Johnson's really, really close, because what a wonderful man. And yeah, I miss him every day.
Favorite training camp memory?
You want to go first?
Sure. For me, it's when Jason Avant saved my life, because
I don't know if I know this story.
No, it was up at Lehigh, and Deshaun Jackson got into a pretty vicious fight, and I had to look up the player, with Brandon Hughes,
cornerback.
Yeah, they had been kind of going at each other for a while. And remember at Lehigh, like next to the bleachers, they would have that plastic like barrier.
Yeah.
So I was like pinned against that plastic, and they were fighting like right near me. And Avant, of course, broke it up, and I was going to get hit by something, a fist or a helmet, and Jason Avant saved my life. And I told him that a few years ago.
That's a good one. Yeah. My favorite training camp memory happened right at the same place at Lehigh on a Saturday in 2004, when T.O.'s first Saturday practice, and he had practiced a couple of days. One of them was bad weather, and it wasn't a huge crowd. The other one was a weekday. I think it was a shorter practice, but that first Saturday, first 2 days with T.O., and you know that scene in Field of Dreams where the cars line up, you know, at the end of the movie, you can see the cars lining up for miles with the lights on. That's what it was like. The streets of Bethlehem and Hellertown and North Saucon Township, whatever, just car after car. People were parking on like neighborhood streets 2 miles away to get there. It was like Grateful Dead at Englishtown in 1977. You know, people looking for their cars 2 days later. It was the turnout, and I got there like 6:30 because I knew it was going to be insane. I took that back shortcut like through the athletic fields, and but by an hour before practice, you couldn't get near the place. And I remember the morning show was supposed to be live up there, WIP morning show, and I remember Rhea's like, she's just like halfway up there, like, we're just not going to get there. And I don't even know where they did the show from. They probably went back to the city, but the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm, the fans were nuts. And T.O. responded. He caught everything. The place was just bananas. It was so wild. And there was just, it was just this sense of, I mean, this is a team that had lost the NFC Championship game 3 years in a row. And there was a sense of, he's going to get us over the hump. And he almost did.
Almost did.
Yeah, that was an amazing day.
Favorite non-Eagles player to watch?
Yeah, it's got to be Joe for me. I think about that one game in '89. It was actually a week after that Eagles comeback against Washington. The Eagles played the 49ers across the street at the Vet, and the 49ers were down, I believe, 28-10, with 10 minutes left of the game, and Joe Montana threw 4 touchdown passes in the last 10 minutes, 2 to Pensawkins, John Taylor, 1 to Jerry Rice, and 1, I believe, to Tom Rathman. 4 touchdowns in the last 10 minutes. I've never seen anything like it. And he'd been sacked 8 times, took a beating in that game, but I've never seen anything like it. I don't remember him ever playing the Eagles another time. That might be the only time I ever saw him. I did see him play in the Super Bowl in '89 against the Bengals, but that performance was otherworldly.
That's a good one. I have another quarterback for you, Peyton Manning, and it wasn't like we got to see him even at his prime.
Yeah.
But watching him when he got older was even more impressive to me because he didn't have the same physical ability anymore, but he could still control a game however he wanted, and we saw that. Just fun, gets to the line, and just the defense is like, oh, what's he doing now? He's going to wear out that clock, and he's going to change everything at the line. That to me is like peak enjoyment, is watching Peyton Manning do that, and he did it against the Eagles that one game. So
yeah,
that was fun. All right, most embarrassing moment on the beat.
You go first.
I don't have a great one.
I have a few for you. No.
But it sticks with me because I was so early at this. I went up to Chaz Henry.
Yeah.
And I thought he was Alex Henry. And in hindsight, it's not that big of a deal. It's the punter and the kicker, and they have really similar names, but that was like a nightmare for me. That was like one of my first times at a training camp practice, and I addressed the complete, and they look nothing alike, by the way.
Chaz Henry was pretty tall.
Chaz Henry was a pretty big dude.
Yeah.
Alex Henry was kind of little and looked like a kicker. And I asked Chaz Henry a question that was clearly, and I called him Alex. So I think about that one. That one.
What did he say?
He was like, I'm Chaz.
Oh yeah, I'm also writing a story about you.
Yeah, yeah. So that one sticks with me.
That's good. That's good. Mine is embarrassing, and I've never told this story, but a week before that 49ers game, that when Montana threw the 4 touchdowns, the Eagles were in Washington at RFK. It was one of the most amazing comebacks in Eagles history. They were down 30-14 at halftime, and they were down 30-20. I've just got it up here. They were down 37-28 with 3 minutes left. Randall threw a touchdown to Mike Quick to make it 37-35. And Washington is just running out the clock. And I had a running back named Gerald Riggs who rushed for 221 yards that day. But on his last carry, he fumbled. And that was the play that Al Harris, Rancocas Valley's Al Harris, not the cornerback, but the defensive end Al Harris, who played with the Bears, he recovered it and lateraled to Wes Hopkins. And it was really controversial because it looked like the ball might have left his hand before Wes touched it, but it was ruled illegal lateral. He handed it to him. And Wes ran down to the 3-yard line, and then Randall threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Keith Jackson as time ran out, 42-37. It was the same day Randall signed a contract extension that morning at the hotel, too. Well, what's never been said is that so we're allowed on the field back then for the last couple of minutes of a game. So Dave Spadaro and I got in the elevator to watch at the 2-minute warning to watch the end of the game on the field. Well, the elevator made 5 stops, and we got down to the field level, and we hear this giant roar, and it was Gerald Riggs' fumble and the recovery and the return. We never saw the play.
That stinks.
And we made a pact to never tell anybody. But Spuds, I'm sorry, the truth comes out. One of the greatest plays in Eagles history. I did a book called The Greatest Plays in Eagles History. I never saw that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that stinks.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're trying to get to the field and beat the crowd because once the game ends, there's like 1 million people and there was one elevator for the media in RFK. Wow. So we were trying to beat the rush, and we not only beat the rush, we missed the play.
All right. One memory from Minnesota that sticks out. For me, it's kind of just a quirky one. It was being in the mall, and you and I had gone to the little store to buy stuff for our families and friends. I had this big bag of like stuff that I had to bring back. And it's all just generic Super Bowl 52 purple stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember running into players, and it was a group of them. And it was Jordan Hicks specifically, who wasn't even playing in the game. He was hurt. He had a torn ACL, but he wanted to go through my bag and look at all the stuff that I was buying because he needed to go buy stuff for his family too. Yeah. And it was just a funny moment to think about. Like one of the players has to go to one of these little pop-up shops in the Mall of America and buy beanies for their parents. Like I had to buy one for my dad.
We spent, I know we went to that store together. I remember that. And I think it was the day we got there. I think I spent over $500 in that store, which is not easy and not hard to do because like a polo is like $79.99, but it was nice stuff. It was all like woven logos.
We both had like lists of people we had to buy stuff.
Yeah. I got a really nice gift there for someone who doesn't talk to me anymore. I'm kind of pissed about it. My favorite memory from Minnesota.
I still wear that.
My favorite memory, or my strongest memory. You were there. We had flown in. We landed. We had a meeting at the gate, and we drove downtown to just kind of see what was going on. And I can't remember if we parked somewhere, if we were still driving, but we saw them putting up the Nick Foles mural. Yeah. Remember?
And Brandon Graham.
But the Nick Foles, like that's when it struck me that this is really happening. They're putting up Nick Foles like was the backup quarterback a month earlier, and they're putting up a giant mural. I think it was right across the street from the stadium on a billboard.
Yeah, I was glad we did that.
Yeah.
We literally landed, got in a rental car and went downtown.
Yeah.
Onto the stadium.
Just to kind of get the lay of the land. We found that bar that had the sign about
free beer for Eagles fans. We'll throw it at you or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I think that was the most vivid thing because that's when it all kind of seemed real. Was that moment like, wow, Nick Foles is really going to start at quarterback in a Super Bowl.
All right, favorite road city and road stadium.
Yeah, for me, it's Seattle. I love that city. I love that stadium. It's.
Oh, did you do just one?
You wanted a separate stadium and city?
Oh, I split it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go Seattle for both, honestly, because
that's fair.
And they're so tied together. Like you can walk to the stadium from downtown. You can walk everywhere downtown. It's so walkable. So many cool things. We spent like 4 hours up in the Space Needle drinking some local beer. I forget what it was, and eating crab cakes up there. And there's ferries that go to the islands. I took the train up to what's that town up there? Bellingham, which I found out later is where Doug Peterson grew up.
Yeah.
And I'm like wearing this Bellingham t-shirt, and he's like, I grew up there. And it's just it's a place I could easily visit, vacation there. We don't get out there too often, but man, I just love, and the stadium itself is
great.
Incredible. It's it's beautiful, it's loud, it's right downtown. And it's cool because the baseball stadium is right next to it, and there's like a parking garage in between them. Mm-hmm. So it's the parking garage for either stadium. It's just you walk this way if you're going to the football game, you walk this way if we're going to the baseball game. I thought that was pretty clever. So yeah, that's I love it out there.
Seattle's my favorite city on this. It's great. The one time I did a day trip to Mount Rainier.
Yeah.
And I crossed over a river like on the drive. And then that night I went to a restaurant in Seattle. I had oysters from the river so it's a cool place. I love the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Favorite stadium though is Lambeau.
Okay.
And if you've never been there and the Eagles play there whenever they play there again, go. I mean, it's not an easy place to get to, and you hope they're playing there earlier in the season, but I'm impressed by how they expanded it and made it still feel like an old school stadium.
Yeah.
It has that really cool museum in it.
Yep.
So yeah, for me, that's it. How about the flip side, the least favorite road city and least favorite road stadium?
Well, the least favorite stadium is Houston Astrodome.
Okay.
You know, which I've told the story of the Monday night game in '91 when all the phones went out on deadline, and I had to file my story from a payphone using acoustic couplers in the concourse. But it was just, I mean, that thing was worse than the vet. I mean, they just let it go. I'm sure it was closed, I assume, by the time you got down there.
Yeah, big asbestos problem.
Yeah, and it's still standing, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, because they treat it like a landmark, but they haven't done anything with it. Every few years, there's like a big thing where they're like a new plan, like turn it into a park or turn it into and it never happens.
Yeah, they should just demolish that thing. It's right next to Reliant Energy, whatever they call it, and right, literally, 50 feet away, and it's all fenced off. But yeah, but my least favorite city, it's a tie between Detroit and Houston. I'm not a big Houston fan. I know you are, and that's cool. But
blasphemous to have Houston and Detroit in the same breath.
Yeah, I'd probably go Houston. I don't know.
Yeah, my least favorite is Detroit, and it's gotten better. That little I give them credit. I don't want to, slag off Detroit too much, but they've gotten a little better. That Greek town area has gotten much better.
That's where the casino is.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of cool down there now. My least favorite road stadium is FedEx Field. Yeah, it's a dump.
Yeah, it is.
And everyone knows it's a dump. It just is. They need a new stadium so bad, and that seems like a kind of a mess right now. But
yeah, everything down there is a mess with that franchise.
Favorite air travel story, and we're almost done here.
Favorite air? I don't even have that on my list.
That was your recommendation.
I remember it now. I think this is an old list I'm going by. Yeah, we were. It was after a game against the Saints, and I had a 6 a.m. flight. There was only like one nonstop from New Orleans to Philly, and we take off, and like we're in the air for like maybe 10 minutes. All of a sudden, we're doing one of these like U-turns in midair, and the pilot comes on and he says, "Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, they're always calm no matter what's going on. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have a small situation here. When we were taking off, you might have heard a bird flew into one of our engines, and yeah, we no longer have use of that engine. Now we should be fine with our one engine, but we're gonna fly around and burn off. We're gonna dump fuel and over the Lake Pontchartrain, and when it's safe to land, we're gonna bring you back to the field, and we'll just have some people come out to the plane and and check it out. And we fly around like for an hour burning fuel or whatever they did, and I'm like, no, flying doesn't bother me, but we land, and all this, like the guy's like saying like it's totally routine. So as soon as we land, like all these fire trucks are like coming out to the plane, and then there's this Jeep. There's this like this Jeep comes out like, and these guys jump off the Jeep, and they get up in this ladder, and they're taking pictures of the inside of the engine with a Polaroid, and I don't know, do they still make Polaroid cameras? But they're
coming back.
The thing came, the photo came out, and they're looking at it, and they're like shaking their head.
Not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. And but we ended up, I ended up in New Orleans for another 12 hours, so I could get on another flight, which went through like St. Louis to get home eventually. But yeah, there's a lot of stories like that, but that was a little. Yeah, once you see the fire trucks coming over, like this is not normal.
My favorite is after the week in Minnesota, and I was really sick.
I know this story.
As you remember.
Yeah.
And my flight got canceled. My direct flight from Minneapolis to Philly got canceled. And I knew that before I got to the airport, but I was like, I'm leaving. I'm leaving this place. And I went to the Delta gate, and I normally don't fly Delta, so I don't even have any status on that airline or, no points or anything.
Just take me anywhere.
I literally said that to the woman. She said, well, our next flight to Philly. I was like, I'll take the next flight. Said, what do you mean? I was like, I want to get out of here. I want to leave here, and I want to go somewhere else. And luckily there was a flight to Chicago. So I was like, I'll take it. And they're like, well, there's no flight from Chicago to Philly today. Don't care. Just get me to Chicago, and my sister lives near Chicago, so I flew to Chicago, spent the night at my sister's house, and then the next morning took a flight to Philly. But I remember, like, the Delta lady, I don't think anyone ever told her that. Like, no, I'll take the next flight. Just wherever. Just get me out of here.
Dave was not a big fan of.
I mean, it was like -6. I'm sick.
We'd been out there for like 9 days at that point.
Yeah, I wanted out.
Yeah.
Last one. Biggest what if during your time on the beat?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
For me, it's the 2008 NFC Championship game.
Good one.
The Eagles go up. They take the lead on that Donovan 62-yard touchdown to Deshaun. Like 6 minutes left, 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We thought we were going to, going ahead to the Super Bowl. And, then, man, they just drive the length of the field. And, Tim Hightower, was that the running back's name? Converts a 4th and 3 from midfield. If they stop them, the game's over. Then they score. And then, the Eagles drive down to like the 30 or the 35, and Donovan throws incomplete 4 times, and the fourth one was the pass interference on Kevin Curtis, Rod Hood, former Eagle. And man, you don't know that they would have won if they completed one of those or if they got the call right, but they had that team beat, and they'd beaten them 48-20 a few weeks earlier. They had the game won. And, the sad thing about it was Jim Johnson's last game. It was Brian Dawkins' last game as an Eagle. And until that zeros were on the buzzer, I thought they were going to win that game and go to the Soup. Just didn't happen.
Yeah. For me, it's what if the Eagles didn't trade Sam Bradford?
Interesting.
Yeah. Think about it. I mean, so many things had to line up the right way because they had to draft Carson. Then they had to basically go through the motion and say, all right, well, Sam's the 1, Chase Daniel's the 2, Carson's the 3. Then Teddy goes down in Minnesota just by chance. They trade Sam. It gives Carson a full year as the starter. I mean, he's not the same player in 2017 if he sits in 2016. And who knows how Sam would have played that year, So it's hard to say. It's kind of like the butterfly effect, but it's hard to imagine the Super Bowl going off the way it did if they don't trade Sam Bradford.
Yeah, it's true. Interesting.
Yeah. That was fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
We'll do another 30 of them tomorrow.
Yeah, I was about to say, I hope you enjoy it. Please forget about all these answers because we'll probably need to do it again next year. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Hope everyone is enjoying the summer. Pretty soon we'll be at training camp. We can't wait. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye. We'll talk to you soon.